A poet, knowing there is no future after this present judgment, is writing to those having lost faith in their government provided indoctrination. We did not choose to go to the moon. We were told to comply and fund the lie, as if gain of function was only a concoction stumbled upon yesterday. When it became clear that all your trouble is not going away, helping fix your planned extermination pays the bills, provides money for some thrills along the way to meet your maker. You are a beating heart storing treasure, or breath for a moment passing as vapor as the sun warms the air. Writer's block would be a shock to an artificial thinker, an artificial intelligence. Garbage in or out, is not it all another man's treasure? Sometimes, most of the time, I go back to dot my I's with Visine. I'm just kidding, to keep the red out. I'm only joking. I dot my I's and I cross my T's out of habit. That is easy to forget when you write page after page as the poet, prophet, Paco gets worked up. Sometimes I don't cross my T's. Going over the obvious need to reevaluate our biases, God-denying history of our recent racist past, planned by Satan on his throne in Hollywood since the golden age past, planning another plandemic. Because if it's not broken, gain of function over something the sick and twisted insist is for the betterment for all of us that vote for the status quo, an uncrossed T. So there's that. 3 T's and 1 I to cross on that one. I was not caught in the act of adultery. Linda didn't tell me she was married. I felt guilty anyway. I was living with Scott McKenzie's ex-wife, Alana, who still looked like the cute Playboy bunny that had married that one-hit wonder, Scott McKenzie, who had plenty of money for a while because of that song, If You're Going to San Francisco, Wear Flowers in Your Hair. But he ditched Alana. Like most beautiful women, they get divorced. He ditched Alana after moving to Joshua Tree. That's where I met her. So I slept with Linda, who had climbed in my bed with Alana in the next room. So she knew what that WTF, right? So I wrote down this. Alana, kind of being a bitch, told Barbara the next day, quote, "Red Dog owes me money, so I'm going to get it." So she tells Mike Hughes, that's Red Dog, my cousin. Red Dog is his biker name. He's one of the first guys to shave his head, and he was huge. And so shortly after that, I was at a big party by this lesbian, the first lesbian I ever really met, who was perfecting sinsemilla there in the valley, growing it, without seeds. As if you ever wonder where it came from, it was right there at the, Joshua Tree National Park. Yucca Valley. So I run into Red Dog. Yeah, somebody told me he's in the kitchen. He wants to talk to you. So I go in there to talk. I greet him, and he's only staring daggers through me. So at this point, I'm 19 years old. I'm in California because I want to join a band, and I'm a long-haired, hippie boy. But I tried to, I had a religious thing going. But I was tough at 19. I was a trained fighter. I was a wrestler. I could handle myself, but not Mike, not Red Dog. He could snap me like a twig. I asked him, "What's wrong, Mike?" I didn't do it. He asked me if what Alana said was true, that Red Dog owes me money and I'm going to get it. I said, "Hey, man, what'd that bitch tell you? She all of a sudden decided I needed to pay rent?" So I said, "Look, we've been laying some carpet with Red Dog at Palm Springs. He'll get the money. I'll get the money when he gets paid." So she twisted that into, "Oh, he'll get the money." Red Dog didn't want to hurt me. That was good. But because so many people thought that I had challenged him in some way, I had to leave the valley the next morning. So from that party, I walked back to Linda's house, who had not gone to the party. And I acted like I was just back because, "Oh, you're so hot, Linda." She was Donovan's maid at the time. Donovan, the singer of "Sunshine Came Softly Through My Window Tonight." You ever remember that one? Window Today? So he was kind of a big deal there in the valley. All that so I could live to say one more day. Once again, welcome everybody to Mud Flood Was Armageddon. That's right. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they are willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. This is going to be a hard-hitting, long-ranging, wide-ranging, something like that, extravaganza. Yeah, check that out. I will be showing some things. And now, because we are all compliers, some of us are liars. Well, we're all liars. The father of lies until we got born again and started working on that sanctification. 1 second. So there's the thing. I feel like if you're patient with me, you're going to be rewarded with some really good stuff tonight. And you're going to be happy because I got a lot of pictures. I know you. Oh, who doesn't like the pictures? So is it going to go first, last, first? Okay. Another thing about Fort Ross. I'm glad I talked about the Russian American company the day before this, because when these guys put it out, they might think I'm copying them. Instead, the Lord is just putting the Russians back in the news. San Francisco, right? The mud flooder's gift that keeps giving. Did you see this? That's the USS Harry Truman. Oh, I got to go to. Both of these are pictures for tonight. Oh, man. But I'm going to keep going this way. So this ship, see this? This hit a United States aircraft carrier, the Harry S. Truman. Another ship got rammed at sea by something its $1 billion couldn't account for. They're like, is there a large ship coming at us? We can't tell with all our radars. But anyway, you'll see another picture. This is the elevator door that lets the planes go down. So now it hit this part where my mouse was right here. So they're worried that this is that elevator, that it won't be able to come down. This aircraft carrier has to come back to the United States and get fixed because it hit it in the perfect spot to mess up the The whole USS Harry S. Give 'em Hell Truman. So we're going to be looking at some of these. Like I said, it's going to be a long show. Look at these. What's going on over here, right? That looks like a mud flood to me. And then there's, buildings carved out of the mountains. Okay. So we're going to look at some of these websites because the golden age passed. The mud flood was Armageddon. My story is going to be the same. What's under the sand dunes? What's under sand? Well, these were people that God gave a lot of grace, and He gave them extra judgment. How about some hot sand turning everything to sand? Mercy, Baku. Look at that, and it's everywhere. So here's a symbol that exists on 3 continents. I'm not sure which one they're talking about. I think it's these flowers, but it might be these guys up here. I have the website left off. So this is what they painted on those rock cut buildings. I like the way the perspective on these corners are painted into it. You'd never know you were in a cave when you were. Look at that. See how all of Asia departed Paul. Still wanted to be considered nice people, good people. They just didn't want to do it the Lord's way. So all of Asia departed Paul. It looks like they just threw a little metal on front of these and said, this house is mine now. It must have been one of the good ones. So there's some more of the singing sand dunes. So I guess when you walk on this sand, it makes a funny noise. And people know about this. How come? Well, New Earth Channel and the Russians released through Flamenco that, wow, it looks like they added 1,000 years. That was in 2014. Ding, ding, ding. By the end of 2016, I changed my channel from Alan Flat Earth to Flat Earth Nation Golden Age Past. Now, that's because I'm a Christian, and I knew if they added it, that was by revelation, the Lord showed, that was the golden age. And now Christians believe it on all of the continents. So this is it, they paid the Pripyat Islands, the people of it, 8.5 million because the Russians and the Americans, the Russian-American company, and they were professing Christian governments, took slaves and then they forced them to work from 1870 to 1940, 1870 to 1946. And they paid them this money when they were the only time the United States admitted they were wrong. They admitted they were wrong with that internment. Okay, how many different types of orbits are there in the world? That because we live on a globe, so they would have you believe they need to have low Earth orbit, minimum Earth orbit, geosynchronous Earth orbits, geostationary, high Earth, high elliptical. They don't have them all. They don't have 97% dark matter that nobody can see, taste, or smell, but they know it's there because it makes the math work for their spinning globe. And by the way, because of it, now they can make atomic weapons that could blow up the whole world. You should be afraid. Look at it. We talk about the Freemasons and the blacks are in it. It's not only white people. Only fit blacks should procreate to eradicate the race's heritage of moral iniquity. Yeah. One of the free blacks that get outspoken said, maybe we should be the communist. And he's propped up as one of the great black leaders, but he was working with Margaret Sanger. So, dark history of eugenics. This has been going on since the 1700s. That's when this Malthusian Oh, we're going to run out of food. What are we going to do? We should start culling the populations. Maybe we should pray for the plague. Oh, isn't that what this guy said? Society should court the return of the plague to keep the population down. Well, that Malthusian, there's different types of progress. This guy made it into the dark eugenics. Kellogg's cornflakes. This monster was funded by the Seventh-day Adventists because he was Ellen White's chosen little boy, him and his other brother, the other Kellogg, whom she practically adopted and raised in her own home like their sons, because her husband was a tree hugging kind of, it'd be an effeminate man, you would say. But they raised him, and they're the ones that started putting sugar into the food of the mainstream. So let's see, 400 college courses were available in the 1920s, teaching it at Yale and everything. They were teaching whites are superior. Darwin proved it. We know it. Did you know that from the 1600s until the 1970s, in some states, whites and blacks could not be married legally in the United States? We act like that was solved no, it wasn't solved a long time ago. They were convinced one drop of black blood and you were less. This girl, Margaret Sanger, Woman and the New Race. The way to get bigger wages, shorter hours, a new system for the advancement of labor is to make laborers' numbers fewer. Let us not wait for war, famine, and plague to do it. Let us cease bringing unwanted children into the world to suffer a while, add to our burdens, and then die. Let us cease bringing others into the world to compete with jobs of the fit. The Darien Strait, the gold rush, people supposedly walked across this. This was something we'll look at briefly. The Darien Strait in Panama, they're talking about doing something with it today. It's always been weird. There's supposed to be a road from Argentina or Chile to Anchorage, Alaska. And the only place it doesn't connect is this place right here. Too dangerous, too many banditos. Finally, the rocks are body parts, titans. These are not trees. Look at some of the perfection of what's going on here, and just call it a quarry. It's not, nobody quarried those. These are just old muscle things that are, made in cells and break off, segmented. It does help in quarrying, but this part isn't a quarry. That this is drawn on top of them. They knew that they were body parts. They knew the spirals. It wasn't for the map codes. But he quarried the top of that rock. These three rocks were quarried. They say they weigh 800 tons. That's the size of those ones I was just showing you. So they don't know how they made those back in the day and moved them, but there's mysteries. So some are 670, with the biggest being up to 800 or 900. And they showed that we can do that. Now, does that look like a tree to you? This is the same basalt columns of Devil's Tower that people go like, it's a tree. It's not a tree. Trees don't grow like that. They grow round, tree rings. They're not fibers. And this is what they want you to believe, that, they actually said that. 40,000 hexagonal basalt columns. They were made by lava dripping like this. They even give you an example. Does that look like a basalt column in any way, shape, or form? See how this, you know, Devil's Tower without it? Because like I've suspected Devil's Tower is probably a shin or a lower part of your leg stuck, and it wouldn't have the skin on the top, but some of the muscle does have, you know, ways to connect. And it's a worldwide phenomenon. So here's my look at can they make these things the way they want? Does William Faulkner look like an elusive genius? I think so. Who's the one saying getting slaughtered? Oh, she lost. But you can see why people thought she really was so smart. She could work at Harvard University. But then she plagiarized everything. See, we got here. Look here's the super spreader, patient 0, AIDS super spreader. I hate to say it, but doggone, that's like looking in a mirror, except I guess I could have been an AIDS super spreader, but I was just not into it. Yeah, that's why I think I got in trouble with Linda and Alana and that other thing. Girls just wanted some Paco. Hey, Freescale Semiconductors back in the news. We'll be talking about them while serving the world's largest companies. Freescale Semiconductor is also committed to supporting science, technology, engineering, and math. That is, if you're STEM, like in 1958 reset, USA 1958 Department of Defense National Education Act, where they brought in DARPA, NASA, and STEM. STEM. Malaysian plane. So 20 passengers worked for electronic warfare and military radar in that Malaysia flight MH370. And that's a big part of my life as the Prophet Paco of knowing, because my son was until they perfected this software from this company on Freescale, where a lot of them died and went missing under mysterious circumstances. I'm going to have to come back. Well, it says it went missing. I think I have it here. Yeah, we are going to come back for that when I read that story. 2 Chronicles 20, verse 10. And now behold, the men of Ammon and Moab and Mount Seir, whom you would not let Israel invade when they came from the land of Egypt, and whom they avoided and did not destroy, behold, they reward us by coming to drive us out of our possession. Well, I don't think God was surprised that, God divided the nations among a bunch of let's make them let's go ahead and you rule. You think you're going to do it? You take these nations and I'll take them, and we'll all come up with our own laws. 2 Chronicles 20, the second part of verse 12. We do not know what to do, but our eyes are on you. That's what, who was that you wrote? Jehoshaphat. And now behold, the men of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir are on us to destroy us. Behold, our God will not, our God, will you not execute judgment on them? For we are powerless against this great horde that is coming against us. And if your eyes are not on Jesus, they're on something else. French President Emmanuel Macron, he's in the news today. He's called an emergency summit. The 47-year-old man, or 57, he's a big deal in France. Been president since 2017. He's married to a girl here. There he is kissing her hand. She's 80 years old. Yeah, she's 80. She's the first lady. That's her name. Uh, she was in charge of the after school theater club he attended when he was 15, alongside her own daughter, Lawrence. So that one, Candace O'Neill, or the girl that is a conservative, she thinks he's a boy that transitioned, and that the 15-year-old president of France fell in love, with a 40-year-old woman and 3 children. Said, love it. Live it, love it. So we're going to go back. When I get to these, I'll talk about the thing. So it's all about the Tartary, right? I mean, Jared Booster's on it.
Russian American company, Tartaria in America, Grand Tartary, San Francisco, the lost architecture of San Francisco, the buried levels of San Francisco, everything that was destroyed in San Francisco in the early 1900s with the different cataclysmic weather events. Anything that stands out to you, I would love to hear about it. I can't.
Because that's how he makes his living, in the comments. Again, the Lord showed me through visions and prophecies and through sacred herbs, psilocybic herbs, peyote and others, that wow, we were taught to read the Bible wrong. It was written to them, and he was coming back, and he meant it. They added 1,000 years. Oh, it's the Flamenco thing, and the rest is history. Now the world knows, but a lot of itching ears going on.
Of the War of 1812, the U.S. was focused on stopping Tartaria or Russian forces in California, a landscape that at this time the United States had no ownership of at all. We're also told that the Tartarians or the Russian American company basically let John Quincy Adams know that Russia owned the entire Pacific coastline of America and all of the islands contained within. Remarkably, given most of us do have a mainstream public education, I personally have never been taught any aspect of the Russian American company history. When the United States realized that Russia or Tartaria was too.
Well, I was glad I had a chance to go over, the Russian American company and how they killed baby seals, and that was a big deal. But, we got these guys.
That never crosses into the Earth's shadow that's streaming away, even at the northern solstice, the most extreme tilt of the northern hemisphere. So what do we do with an orbit like this? Well, since we're always in the sun, how about make a superpower satellite where we can collect solar energy and beam it down to a series of sites on the ground below, giving them power, charging them up every 2 days as we come back around.
Yeah, well, we've seen they spent a lot of money on those solar powered things, and they didn't work. They couldn't pay for themselves. Jumping ahead.
Pichu, with its mysterious stone structures, and only on Tetombo.
Oh yeah, let me back up here. So he's got the Michelle Gibson thing going here. He noticed this. So weird.
Well, it was this. A researcher named Jim Allison noticed that a significant number of ancient sites around the world, some of the oldest, most mysterious structures, all line up on a single circle around the Earth, a straight line. When you put a 2-day orbit over this exact place, it's not an exact circle. It's got slightly a potato chip shape to it, but it lines up pretty closely. Let's hop aboard a 2-day orbit satellite and take a tour of all these ancient sites. We start over the most famous megalithic site, the Great Pyramids, with their mysterious chambers, hidden tunnels, and of course the Sphinx. A little bit later, we cross the Sahara, we cross the Atlantic Ocean, we cross over the Amazon basin, and we come to Machu Picchu with its mysterious stone structures, only on Tetombo, and all the other ancient sites around Cusco. Then we fly past the plain of Nazca with its mysterious etched drawings in the floor of the desert. Of course, we're 60,000 kilometers up, so if we want to see those shapes, we got to have a pretty good telescope. We keep going across the Pacific, 4,000 kilometers, we cross directly over Easter Island. with its gigantic heads, the Moai figures. Actually, they're full figures that are buried down into the ground. Continuing on across the Pacific, we come back up over the equator, we fly up over Cambodia and the ancient temples of Preah Vihear and Angkor Wat. Continuing on up into Asia, we fly over India to Pakistan, to the site of Mohenjo-Daro, one of the oldest Western civilization locations, with its script that has still not been decoded.
How much time and effort? I mean,
that appear to be some of the oldest things on Easter Island, made by humans. The walls are made of basalt, an extremely hard stone. They match the style of construction at Machu Picchu 4,000.
what a surprise. But there's no way that they're ever going to be flat earthers and believe in God.
Our traditional story of the ancient human past, where we go from a long period of hunter-gatherers up to settling down and doing agriculture, and eventually moving into city-states. Researchers suspect, and there is good evidence for, 13,000 years ago, there was a more advanced form of human civilization. How advanced is hard to say, but we know they could do stuff with stone that we really cannot. And then what happened? Suddenly, there was a catastrophe. Something terrible happened. The oceans rose, temperatures dropped, populations were wiped out, cities were abandoned.
Yeah, it's almost like a Bible. And so the science tells them not, what they want to hear. The younger Dryas, these are those Georgia, what do they call those? Yeah, he'll say it.
Good, and ash particles found right there as well. We have seen 500,000 impact craters, ranging from New Jersey all the way down to Alabama, like a giant cosmic shotgun blast hit our planet. So there's hard work to be done. We need more. We
need more questioning the people in charge, because they're the bad people. Just pick a spot. TED Talks.
Countless solar systems, just like our solar system out there, many of them with billions of years lead on us. But a cosmic eye blink of a lead in development is countless generations for a civilization that managed to come ahead of us. What could they do with those generations? I don't know, fill their part of the galaxy with light collecting Dyson spheres, send exponentially multiplying colonization waves, or maybe interstellar travel is actually
colonization, because there's something in us to where it's just in us that we want to inhabit the galaxy. That's TED Talks.
Unfettered expansion. Epic acts of galactic graffiti sound fun. But surely with godlike technological advancement also comes a similar measure of cultural, sociological, psychological evolution. Perhaps once you have the technology to reach the stars, you are immediately inclined to enter a galaxy-wide state of harmony in which, with perfect efficiency, you enforce a prime directive.
What kind of dream world is he living in, man? And so he take it all back to Kepler, the man who worked with Galileo. Who was that other guy, Kepler, that you got to stay up on that. But anyway, he stole it, maybe killed him.
Person on another world took nations. JFK said, we choose to go to the moon. Will we choose to go to Mars?
Did we really choose to go to the moon, or did they just sell us a false thing? So anyway, why is the galaxy so quiet then?
Doing what we can do with our current pace. And honestly, some crazy stuff is going to be tried. So why is the galaxy so quiet? Well, if we do take ourselves as a model, then it means that no one else survives to our state. And it's a little bit hard to escape that conclusion given the numbers.
Huh. So we're just the last survivors of something. But don't worry, it'll be okay.
Chance fusion of proto-eukaryote, proto-mitochondria to forge the modern complex cell is 1 in trillions. Or perhaps it is humanity. Perhaps there was a rewiring back on the plains of Africa. Homo sapiens suddenly learned how to think in different ways. Yuval Harari would say that we learned to believe fictions. We learned to believe in things like a destiny.
But here's the thing. I believe that we were taught a fiction too, and that there's a globe, and that the world would be better if men weren't in charge like the Bible wants them to be. Not the change that they obviously have worked so hard for.
Now they're everywhere. And his point in his video, Dan was saying, we need to make sure we're parsing out and making very clear what is and isn't speculation.
Like our Nephilim's clowns. The 3 words in the scripture, Nephilim, that means giant. Uh-oh. What's up? Did I get struck? Or I wasn't sharing? Pardon me? Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm done showing that video anyway. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Okay, so I appreciate that. Sergio just called me and told me I was getting a strike. But we're moving on. Okay, so that's what he believed. Now, what is speculation to us? Gibborim means something like they're a mighty man of old. Well, God is called a Gibborim. He's the mighty God. Just being a Gibborim is a good thing in the Bible. So there's a lot of speculation going on here with Paul.
Because we don't want to give them ammo to try and shoot us down by making wild claims as fact that are wholly in the realm of speculation. And I suppose in a way I'm partially to blame for this, and I do want to admit my faults and my parts in this. But there is this idea that we are the rest of the dead after Revelation, after tribulation and after the 1,000-year reign. We're told that there's the first resurrection, which involves the saints who were martyred for Christ, and obviously maybe those righteous prior to Christ who were also being resurrected to rule as kings and priests with Christ for 1,000 years on earth. And then it says the rest of the dead
to rule for 1,000 years with Christ on the earth. Okay, let's go. That's one of those things that is that speculation. We'll have to go to Revelation chapter 20 to find out. Now, what he said, is pretty clear, and a lot of people say this. That there are those souls. Here's the first resurrection, the blessed first resurrection. He saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for the testimony of Jesus and for the word of God, and those who had not worshipped the beast or its image and had not received its mark on their foreheads or hands. They came to life and ruled with Christ on earth for 1,000 years. That's what lack of, that's what he just quoted this.
Maybe those righteous prior to Christ who were also being resurrected to rule as kings and priests with Christ for 1,000 years on earth.
I didn't see it. Where does it say for 1,000 years on earth? We know that the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. That they know they had a first resurrection. They're blessed and holy. If they did not, if they fled to the mountains, ran away, and did not receive the mark of the beast, or if they were martyred for it, they were taken. And when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison, come out to deceive the nations, Gog and Magog, four corners of the world. Fire is going to come down from heaven and consume this group. And then Satan, the devil, who had deceived them, was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were already for 1,335 years. Then it was the great white throne of judgment. And we better be very aware that we're not speculating. Now, in Nehemiah, he was the wine tester for the king. And one day he showed up and he was sad, and he let them rebuild the temple. I'm going to pick it up in Nehemiah 9, verse 6. You are the Lord, you alone. You have made heaven, the heaven of heavens, with all their host, the earth and all that is on it, the seas and all that is in them. And you preserve all of them. And the host of heaven worships you. You are Lord, God, who chose Abraham and brought him out of Ur of the Chaldeans and gave him the name Abraham. You found his heart faithful before you and made with him covenant to give to his offspring the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Pezerite, the Jezreelite, and the Girgashite. And you have kept your promise, for you are righteous. And you saw the afflictions of our fathers in Egypt and heard their cries at the Red Sea and performed signs and wonders against Pharaoh and all his servants and all the people of his land. For you knew that they acted arrogantly against our fathers. You gave them bread from heaven for their hunger and brought water for them out of the rock for their thirst. And you told them to go in and to possess the land that you had sworn to give them. But they did. But they and our fathers acted presumptuously, stiffened their necks, and did not obey your commandments. They refused to obey and were not mindful of the wonders that you performed among them, but they stiffened their neck and appointed a leader, Aaron, to return to their slavery in Egypt. But you are a God ready to forgive, gracious and merciful, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, and did not forsake them, even though they made for themselves a golden calf and said, "This is your God who brought you up out of Egypt," and had committed great blasphemies. You in your great mercy did not forsake them in the wilderness. They lacked for nothing. Their clothes did not wear out, and their feet did not swell. You multiplied their children as the stars of heaven. They captured the star fort cities and a rich land and took possession of those star fort houses full of all the good things. Cisterns. We've seen the pictures of the cisterns that have already been hewn. Vineyards, olive orchards, fruit trees in abundance. So they ate and were filled. They became fat and delighted in themselves. They delighted themselves in your great goodness. Nevertheless, they were disobedient and rebelled against you and cast your law behind their back, killed your prophets who had warned them in order to turn them back to you, and they committed great blasphemies. This is the pattern of the Bible. Verse 32, now therefore our God, the great, the mighty, the awesome God, who keeps covenant and steadfast love, let not all the hardship seem little to you that has come upon us, upon our kings, our princes, our priests, our prophets, our fathers, and all your people. Since the time of the kings of Assyria to this day, he continues to be righteous. Verse 35, even in their own kingdom and amid your great goodness that you gave to them, and in large and rich lands that you set before them, they did not serve you or turn from their wicked works. Behold, we are slaves this day in the land that you gave our fathers to enjoy its fruit and its good gifts. Behold, we are slaves, and its rich yield goes to the kings whom you have set over us because of our sins. They rule over our bodies, over our livestock as they please. We are in great distress because of all this. As they were rebuilding the temple, we make a firm covenant in writing on the sealed documents, the names of our priests, our Levites, our princes. So how many times did, and here, these are all the people that said, we agree, we are going to stop being bad, and we are going to take this second chance to make another covenant. And this is like the third or fourth. But they'll break it again. They all admitted it. They took the obligations to give a third, a part of the shekel for the service of the house of the God, pay for the burnt offerings, the Sabbaths. We obligate ourselves to bring the first fruits of the ground. And we know they did not. They promised we will not neglect the house of our God. How'd that work out? Villages filled, priests and the Levites, the days of Jehoiakim, here's the priests. And at the dedication of the wall, they sought the Levites in all their places to bring them to Jerusalem to celebrate the dedication. The singers, the cymbals, the harps, the lyres brought the leaders up to Judah onto the wall and appointed two great choirs to give thanks. They met in the middle of town and they served the Lord. They had it set apart. He made some final reforms. And to the very end, in those days, he saw Judah people treading wine presses on the Sabbath, bringing in heaps of grain, loading them on donkeys, also on wine, grapes, figs, all kinds of loads which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath, because it was turning into a den of thieves. It was a way to do it. And they can be confronted and, what is this evil thing you are doing, profaning the Sabbath day? Did not your fathers act this way? And did not our God bring all this disaster like he's doing now? Right now to us, people who claim that this was a Christian nation. And remember, when we all start here, Paul didn't want too much speculation going on. He might have been a little guilty of it, and then he reads from Revelation and adds in, these people were the dead and those in it, and they ruled with him in Jerusalem for 1,000 years. And they came to life and ruled reign with Christ for 1,000 years in Jerusalem. That's in his mind, that's in there. Here's another little verse that I believe Marcella sent me. I'm going to read though before she did verse 17, the wicked shepherd, but I'm going to give you the context to it, because all of this is about God writing a book, the end from the beginning, because he's going to expose Satan as a Judas, as someone who was a liar, and he's going to be the one to rebuke him. And I tended the sheep. In 1 month I destroyed the 3 shepherds, but I became impatient with them, and they detested me. So I said, I will not be your shepherd. What is to die, let it die. What is to be destroyed, let it be destroyed. And let those who are left devour the flesh of one another. And we read that's what happened in Jerusalem. And I took my staff favor and I broke it, annulling the covenant that I had made with all the peoples. So it was annulled on that day. And the sheep traders who were watching me knew that it was the word of the Lord. Then I said to them, if it seems good to you, give me my wages, but if not, keep them. And they weighed out as my wages 30 pieces of silver. Then the Lord said to me, throw it to the potter, the lordly price at which I was priced by them. So Jesus was betrayed by him. It's God, the lordly price. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and I threw them into the house of the Lord to the potter. Then I broke my second staff union, annulling the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. Then the Lord said to me, take once more the equipment of a foolish shepherd. For behold, I am raising up in the land a shepherd who does not care for those being destroyed, or seek the young, or heal the maimed, to nourish the healthy, but devours the flesh of the fat ones, tearing off even their hoofs. Woe to my worthless shepherd who deserts the flock. May the sword strike his arm and his right eye. Let his arm be wholly withered and his right eye utterly blinded. So here's that Marconi, Emmanuel Marconi. He's convening that European convention. Looks like just like a regular president of the United States. They built him up to where he is, has called our leaders to Paris. Called our leaders to parents. Trump, okay, he might go. But anyway, how's he get in the news? You look him up. Well, there he is, Emmanuel Macron. Okay. Inviting the European leaders, been the 25th president of France, took office winning in 2017. Crazy, huh? Supposed to be very smart. Man, this is his wife. He loves her. They're quite a couple. There's two, quite the couples. They're trying to compare her to Marie Antoinette. So here's the dealio. You saw one of the things. Brigitte Macron, Emmanuel Macron's wife, youngest of 6 children. All right. Macron at the time taught literature at the College of Luxembourg in Strasbourg in the 1980s. By the 1990s, she was teaching French and Latin at a Jesuit school in Amiens. From 2007 to 2015, she taught at the St. Louis Gonzaga. It was an after-school drama club event at La Cité des Provinces where she and Emmanuel Macron first met. She was in charge of the after-school theater club he attended when he was 15, but he also attended it when he was 14, alongside her own daughter, Lawrence. Now, who names their daughter Lawrence? I mean, that's a band's name. Their relationship has attracted controversy as she is his senior. She's older than him by 25 years almost, and he's a minor. He has described it as a love often clandestine. Love often clandestine. Hidden, misunderstood by many before being self-imposed. What does that mean? What does that even mean? Here's this guy. He's a Jesuit. Completed high school curriculum, really young, supposed to be set up by, he's so smart. I don't watch a lot of the Fox News people like that girl Candace that is exposing this right now, but I have watched a few of them, and he's exposed. She's exposed. He was a little boy who fell for a girl dressed like a man dressed like a girl. All right, the Darien Gap. I was talking with this on RJ on the phone the other day, and it's just strange because you can see here, here's the Darien Gap, and it's the only part from Santiago, Chile to Anchorage, Alaska that's not like a road connected to Alaska to Chile. But there's this Darien Gap thing in the Colombia-Panama border. It's the little break in the Pan American Highway. Little 60-mile break there. It's been a big thing for quite a while. Trying to be settled there. It's just a short thing. A lot of people that they claim about that, whatever the gold rush of the San Francisco 49ers was. So finally somebody made it across in a motorcycle. It looked like a pretty sturdy. A couple of Corvairs made it. There's the Lost Corvair in 1961. They drove it from Chicago down to Argentina, and two of them made it through the Darien Gap, but this one didn't. So it's a little tourist thing now. Now, when we get to the Darien Gap thing here, some of the statistics, this is that place you don't want to go. There are banditos. They'll kill you for your shoes. It's this 66-mile thing that is a big deal. Now, here's what you need to know. Perilous conditions exist there. Since the 2010s, the Darien Gap now has become one of the heaviest migration routes in the world. With hundreds of thousands traversing the Darien Gap to the United States. It says in 2022, not that long ago, there were 250,000 crossings compared to pre-COVID, 2019, there were only 24,000. That is crazy. But the next year, it was double, 500,000. We don't have the statistics for 2024 yet, but I'm thinking it's going to be big. 2 Chronicles 22:7. Ahaziah downfall came from God when he went to visit Joram. When Ahaziah arrived, he went out with Joram to meet Jehu, son of Nimshi, who the Lord had anointed to destroy the house of Ahab. He was the king of Israel. It was appointed. It was going to happen. And so it did. There was a time when a woman, a queen, ruled over Israel. It was this Ahaziah, his youngest son, king in his palace, for the band of men that came with the Arabians to the camp had killed all the older sons. So Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, reigned. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year. His mother's name was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri. He also walked in the ways of the house of Ahab. Not good. For his mother was his counselor in doing wicked. Way to go, Mom. he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, as the house of Ahab had done. For after the death of his father, they were his counselors to his undoing. He even followed their counsel and went with Jehoram, the son of the Ahab, king of Israel, to make war against Hazael, the king of Syria, at Ramoth Gilead. We studied that the other night. And the Syrians wounded Joram, and he returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds that he had received at Ramoth when he fought against Hazael, king of Syria. And Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to see Joram, son of Ahab, in Jezreel because he was wounded. But it was ordained by God that the downfall of Ahaziah should come about through his going to visit Joram. For when he came there, he went out with Jehoram to meet Jehu, the son of Nimshi, whom the Lord had anointed to destroy the house of Ahab. And when Jehu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, he met the princes of Judah and the sons of Ahaziah, brothers, who attended Ahaziah, and he killed them. He searched for Ahaziah, and he was captured while hiding in Samaria. And he was brought to Jehu and put to death. They buried him, for they said, he is the grandson of Jehoshaphat, who sought the Lord with all his heart. And the house of Ahaziah had no one able to rule them. Now when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the royal family of the house of Judah. But Jehoshabeth, the daughter of the king, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the king's sons who were about to be put to death, and she put him and his nurse in a bedroom. Thus, Jehoshabeath, the daughter of King Jehoram, and the wife of Jehoiada the priest, because she was a sister of Ahaziah, hid him from the bad queen, Athaliah, so that she did not put him to death. And he remained with them 6 years, hidden in the house of the god, while an evil queen ruled. Treason, treason. Sheila, and they're taking care, they are trying to clean it up. So they made Jehoiada and his sons anointed him, and they said, long live the king. When Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and praising the king, she went into the house of the Lord to the people. And when she looked, there was the king standing by his pillar at the entrance, and the captains and the trumpeters beside the king, and all the people of the land rejoicing and blowing trumpets with their musical instruments, leading into the celebration. The evil queen, Athaliah, tore her clothes and cried, treason, treason. And they put her to death, but not inside the temple. They made reforms, and then they fell back. It was God's plan. Did you see how many things were ordained by God? Second Chronicles. After this, Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, joined with Ahaziah, king of Israel, who acted wickedly. He joined him in building ships to go to Tartaria. I'm just kidding. And they built the ship in Ezion Geber. Then Eleazar, the son of Dodavahu of Mirosh, prophesied against Jehoshaphat, saying, because you have joined with Ahaziah, the Lord will destroy what you have made. And the ships were wrecked and were not able to go. Wow. So Jehoshaphat, the good numbers, and as you go down here, you see they're leading up to more covenant breaking. Let's go to 24. So 7 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 40 years. Joash decided to restore the house of the Lord. It goes in cycles. It's going in cycles then. It's going in cycles now. God wrote the end from the beginning. We're going to keep moving on here. So what is Tarshish in the Bible? They don't really know. They know that its name appears in other writings and things like that. It's mentioned in Ezekiel 27. It has to do with, King Hiram of Tyre 25 times in the Masoretic text. Dealt with Solomon, knew where the Ophir, the gold was. It's a pretty big deal. Tarshish is something that needs to be looked into. We got to keep moving on here. Hiram, that king, he was Phoenician, according to the Bible. They're putting him here, but the king of Tyre and Hiram's, they went on in 500 to 400 at the destruction of the second temple. So the Bible says he allied himself with King David, and they set about building. So here's an inscription that mentions him. Just something that we need to look at because, there's caves in Colorado where I live and think that this is the camp of the saints. And I know that there are caves everywhere in the world that would cause safety, for people who don't feel like watching other people die knowing that you might be next. We live in a world with a history that shows the mud flood was Armageddon. We have the rock cut architecture. Is it rock or was it the mud flood? Let's just look at some of them. Okay, that 57 feet tall. I guess they wanted it, Did the mountains melt? And all you have to do is just chip off the front and then, hey, look, I found a Petra. I found a house. I carved it. Because they're everywhere. Here's some in India. Come on, people now. These have gotten a lot of press recently, perfectly cut. Inside of a body part of a Titan. Look at this. Rock cut buildings that got covered with melted rock. Didn't it say in Micah 1:4 that the mountains will melt like wax? You know it did. Or you can go look it up. They knew something was going on in the body parts. The ancestors.
Off of that, that's what I want to know.
How were they making money out of this? Well, the derivatives complex, by a little after 2000, had reached $110 trillion. That was about twice the size of global GDP. So this, by 2007, the financial crisis that was developing then, derivatives had reached 700 trillion. So it had gone from 100 to 700 trillion in 5 years. It's now estimated to be maybe 2 quadrillion, which is about 20 times the size of global GDP. Now, what made that possible was using these vast pools of the client assets as the collateral that is extended under these basically bets, these contracts. And so they're using someone else's collateral for their trades.
I didn't even know quadrillion was actually a real word. I thought it was something I made up when I was 7, but but apparently it is.
When did you first hear about the issue with your stocks ownership?
The first time I heard about it was in the subcommittee last week. It's not really that complicated. The problem is just that the information is not being disseminated to the people that are making the purchases. So, they're still utilizing your assets for collateral, whether it's yours in a pool without your name associated with it or yours with your name associated.
There's no stopping this ripoff.
They're using someone else's collateral for.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
We're still hoping to be able to speak.
Me and Bud have gotten good at swimming the last couple of days because it seemed like the ship was going down.
Okay. Well, that wasn't a very good stop and drop. Let's see what we got here.
Search is launched. Do you realize? We waited 4 hours between the last signal from the plane and official searches and the official declaration saying that this plane disappeared.
It's very clear that the information, if the correct information had been acted upon immediately, we would know what was happening.
How to explain that the Malaysian Air Force did not occur on the night of 8 March 2014, as would be required.
All right, so this is the famous Malaysian flight, MH370. And they're still digging into it from 2014 because it is unexplainable. Oh, I got to go back to the... Now, the Malaysian plane had 20 passengers who worked for electronic warfare and military radar. This is from that time period, March 19th, 2024. A U.S. technology company, Freescale, which had 20 senior staff on board Malaysian Airlines flight MH370, had just launched a new electronic warfare gadget for military radar systems in the days before the Boeing 777 went missing. Freescale Conductor, which makes powerful microchips for industries, including defense, released the powerful new products to the American market on March 3rd. 5 days later, MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur for Beijing with 239 souls on board, including 20 working for Freescale. 12 were from Malaysia, while 8 were Chinese nationals. Freescale spokesman Mitch Hawes said these were all people with a lot of experience, technical background, and they were very important people. It's definitely a loss for the company. Freescale shareholders include the Carlyle Group, the George Bush, Dick Cheney, those guys, whose past advisors have included U.S. President George Bush Sr. and former British Prime Minister John Major. Carlyle's previous heavyweight clients included the Saudi bin Laden Group. You ever heard of them? The firm owned by the family of Osama bin Laden, the only people allowed to fly out of the United States on 9/11. The fact that Freescale had so many highly qualified staff on board the Boeing 777 had already prompted wild conspiracy theories because you're not supposed to do that. The company says they were flying to China to improve their consumer products operation, but Freescale's fresh links to electronic warfare technology is likely. The company says they were flying to China to improve all that. Experts have been baffled how a large passenger jet seems to have flown undetected and possibly beaten military radar systems for up to 6 hours. Avoiding radar via cloaking technology has long been one of the objectives of the defense industry, and Freescale has been active developing chips for the military radar. Avoiding radar is the way to do it. On its website, the company says its radio frequency products meet the requirements for applications in avionics, radar communications, missile guidance, electronic warfare, and identification friend or foe. On March 3rd, it announced it was releasing 11 of the new gadgets for use in high-frequency VHF and low-band UHF radar and radio communications. All right. So 4 days after the plane went missing, a patent was approved by the patent office. 4 of the 5 patent holders are Chinese employees of Freescale. The patents are divided up on 20% increments to the 5 holders. They named the people, and Freescale Semiconductor was the 5th patent holder. The patent holder dies. If the patent holder dies, then the remaining holders equally share the dividends of the deceased, if not disputed in a will. If 4 of the 5 die, then the remaining 1 patent holder gets 100% of the wealth. The remaining only living patent holder was Freescale Semiconductor. So they own it all. So they go, there's your motive. That's what they say. But other people are saying, like, no, it didn't happen that way. He adds, here's your motive. Okay, so I thought I had one more. But what they're explaining, they're trying to say is that, no, the 4 people who have patent holders, their name was not on the list. So it couldn't be a conspiracy. Hopefully I was sharing that. So here they are. And now, you search them. $40 billion merger. They got bought out. They got bought out by somebody. They don't exist anymore. But it was big for Texas. Completed a deal to buy Freescale, NXP. $12 billion deal. Now, the deal with that is my son was a spy in the Air Force who flew in a MC-12 Liberty, and they did what the new Freescale in 2014 could do. They could replace what they trained my son and other people to do, which was to bag and tag people, because Mitt Romney had called Barack Obama weak on terror. And those planes iced up. My son almost died in a flat spin. They say it's a miracle he pulled out. Another crew did not. They died in a flat spin, 2 minutes and 30 seconds till they hit the ground. But they had to do it because they were testing this weapon, because it was more of a art than a science, they said, of the people who could pick up certain things, even if the battery wasn't in them. They could still hear it through that device, whatever it was. And now they don't need it. They had Freescale. So the MC-12 Liberty and all of those men who did what my son did, they don't have a job anymore because it's all done by AI in drones. They don't need people that can interpret whatever, they can listen to. You hear some things like they would say, like it could have been a phone maybe, but even if you take the battery out and you go 100 yards away, they can still hear you. And now they can do it with computer. You think I'm kidding you? You think I'm living this life of somebody who was a rich young man and gave it all away to serve the Lord and prove that the stones are crying out that the Bible was written to them? No, it's all part of the same plan. God is in control. He's the one that's going to do it. So we went through all of that. Free scale semiconductor. Let's see. Experts have been baffled how it could fly for 6 hours. If the patent holder dies, then the remaining people will do it. Now, it says that although a free scale patent does exist, none of the names listed actually appear on the passenger manifest. So just discount everything. Nothing to see here. The flight flew on for 6 hours. They didn't send out a rescue mission to escort it back to town. And okay, sounds possible. Look at this guy. Patents. Who needs patents when the actual chip was on board in a briefcase? How do we know that? Yes, 20 Freescale employees, engineers were the target of a Mossad operation for the hideous Blackstone and the Rothschilds. So, Hesperus Mountain, Colorado. Pretty close to where I live. So it's supposed to be some religious mountain of the world. Hesperus is notable as the Navajo people's sacred mountain of the north, which marks the northern boundary of the Dinétah, their traditional homeland. It is associated with the color black and is said to be impregnated with jet. A gemstone? When first man created the mountain as a replica of the mountain in the fourth world, he fastened it to the ground with a rainbow and covered it with darkness. A lot of weird stuff going on around here where I live. The Utes thought their ancestors were there. Now, when did they start wargaming? The earliest war games were invented in the German states around the turn of the 1800s. So at the end of the 1700s, they were derivatives of chess. Something to teach people, we got to, this is what I would do in a fight. What would you do? I could beat you. No, you couldn't. Oh, yeah, they're going to have some contests. So these guys did it. Right? Anything noticing about that hand? They planned the war games. They want people to study how to fight, how to kill, because you have to. You have to kill or be killed. In the Dungeons and Dragons, Ghost Recon, it's always going to be the same thing. They want us to draw a line in the sand and fight to the death. War game is a strategy game, strategic thinking. War Olympics. So it's just a big deal. It can be fun. People get the idea, if I was in charge, I'd win every time. Let's play thermonuclear war. So, wow, that looks older than the 1700s. And there's H.G. Wells, the guy who wants you to believe there's a hollow earth, who convinces people that, even Christians, that, wow, maybe the earth is hollow and Jesus is waiting for a rowboat on an island for people to come and get him. The camp of the saints is at the North Pole. North Pole, really? Really? But right on time, they studied the war games, and then they had World War I, and we've been fighting to divide the nations. Going to make the nations. After the reset, you had to have nations because there's 300 kings in Bavaria. That's too many. You need one nation. Wargaming was invented in Prussia, not Russia. Something about the wargaming just struck me as, glorifying it, fighting, being called of the spirit, not knowing maybe I'm a part elf. And in the meantime, you just got caves everywhere. Things that we don't understand. It's like they're not even trying to explain it to us correctly. They don't worry about what Donald Trump's doing too much, I don't think. The whole world was Armageddon. So the 1,000 Buddha grottos, the Mago caves in that town, Dunhang, it's just buried. I showed you some of these pictures earlier. The world believed in spiritual things. There was no evolution. Everyone thought their God was the God. And the world was made and predestined and set in order. Certain people were born, like Jehu was born and ordained to destroy the house of Ahab. That's a big sleeping Buddha right there. That's our world. What about these caves? Does it just look like the mountains melted? It does to me. That's what I've been saying. That's what I'm going to keep saying. 156 pictures of the Ahanta caves. I've seen this before. That's in the middle of the matrix coming out. Endless Mobius strips. There they are. Just a little depression, or you wouldn't tell. How this ridge line here? You don't think that if they dug it down, they might find some more houses there? Seems like the world was covered. You're either on it, in it, believing it, this is a Bible thing, or you're just having your ears itched. And you think that it doesn't matter if somebody keeps saying over and over again that the Bible says that Jesus is going to reign on earth for 1,000 years on a throne in Jerusalem. And quote it like you're quoting scriptures, but it's not there, and act like that's not a big deal. Everybody knows he's going to rule in Jerusalem. No, he's not. Doesn't say that. That's the speculation you continued upon while you were trying to refute it.
To the Pacific side of the nation before boarding a second clipper ship for the sail north to California. In early spring of 1850, John Beck led a party of mostly experienced Cherokee placer miners from the Georgia Gold Rush to the California motherlode of the Sierra Nevada mountains, crossing into present-day Denver, Colorado on June 26th.
I'm not kidding you. This whole gold rush, the building up of San Francisco, you still have to wonder if those buildings were there. You're going to even give their version of history credence?
In place. We claim the right of naming it, so I proposed Hoosier City as an appropriate name from the fact of its being built by Hoosier boys. Now for a night's lodging in our half-built cabin. Friday.
And they just explain it all away. We can build this. Wood cabins, I do believe that. I don't know how they would have got the material to Leadville, 2 miles. What we got here? So this is another place near me. So this girl is a millionaire, a billionaire. 10 years ago, somebody came to the San Juan Mountains and said, this is the holy place of the world. Not Paco. She's got another prophet.
This old man that was nicknamed the prophet. And this old man, told me that he had been waiting for me to arrive. So I said, wow, come on in and we'll talk about it. So he spent 4 days and told me everything that he had received from Spirit of what was to happen in Crestone. And he said, you're here to do it. And years earlier, he had talked to his students up in the mountains that a foreigner would come in and carry this out. And I'm from Denmark, so I was a foreigner.
Who is she? Where'd she get her money?
They were invested in a company that owned over 2 million acres all through the southwest of the United States. And we were going to live in Phoenix, but decided not to. And he said, well, let's look at all the other places. So we looked throughout Arizona, New Mexico. One day came into the little airport on the ranch in Colorado. I got out of the plane and looked at the mountains. I said, okay, this is the one. This is it. So moved there from Canada, knocked on the door one day, and here was this old man that was nicknamed the prophet for the real purpose. People come, like I said, on retreat from every corner of the world, and you can just come for basic meditation. You can come for very high teachings. You can come for, spend 40 days in nature, guided retreat, where you spend 40 days alone in nature, but you get guidance every step of the way. So what's...
All right. Guess what? I don't believe that she's got the real prophet. So the town of Crestone, small town. But it's right here, in the Alamosa area, the St. Louis Valley, the holy place for 13 different tribes. They're here. They got their prophet. I'm here. I'm the end time prophet. I'm the one that was here to say, time to read the Bible the way it was written to them. It happened. Here's the 1,000 years. And that's the way it's going to be. They're going to be able to do talk, but they're not. Now, there was a couple of, let's see here, recent question. Please help me my math. How does 2046 relate to Daniel's 1,335 days? If I subtract 1,000, that places the timing at 289 BC. What am I missing? Sorry if I'm dense on this one. All right. Let's look at it real quick. Matthew 24 says that when the daily offering is taken away, that's the sign of the abomination of desolation. And it's going to be, sealed up until, these words are sealed up until the time of the end. Now, what we call, they gave it the year 70 AD is when the abomination took place. The offering was taken away. You can't have a regular burnt offering if the stones aren't on top of each other and a Greek king has declared himself a living God in your temple. It's desecrated. All right, so that's the end, and that marked the end. There'll be 1,290 years, days, because it doesn't say days and morning to, and this is how all prophecies do it. So you take the 1,000 years. They added 1,000 years. We don't add that. They have the 1,000. That's the 1,000 years that Satan is in the pit. And then there's 290 years until September 11th, 9/11. The one event that told the world, we're believing a lie. The mafias of the world made that building go bye-bye. All the money is being scrambled right now as they're trying to decide what are we going to use to maintain our wealth. 290 days, years from September 11 takes it back to 1711 or 7/11. So that would put the start of blessed is he who awaits and arrives at the 1335. So there's the 1,000-year reign, the 290 from when Satan is loosed until 9/11, when the nations finally work together to get the world to give up privacy. So there's 45 more years, and that puts it at 2046. So I hope that helps. That's the way it is going to be. That is the understanding of the Bible that hasn't been changed, that's not going to change, because this vision is from God. And he gets all the glory. And if you want to believe that the book of Enoch and all of that other nonsense, and that the Gibborim and Nephilim could mate, angels can mate with women, and that Gibborim means something besides strong, mighty, when most of all but Nimrod, that's considered a Gibborim, is a good guy in the Bible. There's no other bad Gibborims than Nimrod, who is supposed to be the devil incarnate, where it just says he's a mighty hunter before the Lord. It doesn't mean he's good or bad. He just means that he was mighty, like the mighty God. He was a mighty man of old, like David's mighty men. Like when Joshua said, you are mighty men, we're going to go in and take over the land that God has promised. They were mighty. You can't build whole doctrines and tell people that the clowns are Nephilims and the Nephilims are evil spirits, and Nephilim we should base our understanding of the Bible on the book of Enoch, which has never been taken serious because internally it's a mess. It doesn't compute. That's the truth. That's what a real man of God would tell you. And that's why I'm telling you that. Because this is a flat earth nation. The golden age is past. The mud flood was Armageddon. And after Armageddon, there was that 1,000-year reign. And then there was the reaping. Two reapings. The wheats and the tares. The one reaping for the grapes of wrath. And then another reset. The last 335 years where here you are. Yeah, your grandparents and parents complied with the big changeover. They didn't get lobotomized, institutionalized, or criminalized for doubting that we should change our history. They just said, yeah, okay, let's go to the moon. Whatever you say, as long as I can keep my job. That's the truth. Me and my friends are never going to tell you anything else, because we're one called, two chosen, three faithful, four known from before the foundation of the earth to be predestined and elect to tell you the truth, because we have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Ahirsen. Nakamain. That's how I like to say goodbye. You should take this